Very good morning to you. Millions of people across the UK were sent an emergency alert last night with a warning not to light anything that could spark a wildfire. A lot of people were caught off guard by the alert. It lasted 10 seconds, making that loud siren noise, even on phones that were set to silent. The alert warned against any sort of activity that could start a fire, using things like disposable barbecues. It was sent to people across the UK, including Wales, but initially only in Welsh there, which meant some people didn't know what was going on for several minutes. Well, that rather loud warning came as firefighters continue to deal with several fires across England and Wales. The PM said the UK is a tinderbox, but added we can't accept what's happening as the new normal. In Stourbridge, in the West Midlands, multiple homes have been either destroyed or severely damaged. Joining us now, Chair of the National Fire Chiefs Council, Phil Garrigan. Good to see you, Phil. Appreciate you sharing your time. Talk to us about the state of play at the moment. What's happening?
Yeah, look, we've still got three major incidents declared across the UK. So one in Wales, one in Hampshire and one in Stourbridge, one in the West Midlands. So we've still got crews deployed into those areas, both at a local level, a regional level and a national level. So we're still in kind of high spate conditions. But as you will be aware, we've had 11 major incidents declared over the course of the last kind of couple of days, the last 48 hours, which has stretched fire and rescue services resources considerably. And so every fire and rescue service in the country is still dealing with the threat of wildfire. And even last night, we had over 43 wildfires occur across the UK in the last 24 hours. So we're very much still in the thick of it, and we're very much still on the front line of climate change.
How does this year compare, or does it not compare?
No, it doesn't really compare. It's close to 2025 figures, but we've surpassed them, and it's only August. So we're anticipating it being considerably higher than it was in 2025, and that was the highest number of wildfires on record. If I kind of reflect back on my career in the fire and rescue service, 2018, we had Saddleworth Moor, Winter Hill, significant incidents there, probably the first real kind of wildfire threat that we'd kind of experienced across the UK. Then you fast forward to 2022, hottest day of the year, 14 major incidents declared over that period, which we thought was unprecedented at that time. Then 2025, as I say, highest number of wildfires on record, but that has been surpassed in 2026. And to put that into context, since January, we've had 24 major incidents declared due to wildfire and the demands that's placed on the fire and rescue service as a result.
The Prime Minister is pledging to make sure you have the resources you need, and has kind of acknowledged that perhaps at the moment we don't have all the resources we need. What do you make of the comments that have been made by Andy Burnham in recent hours and recent days?
Yeah, look, really welcome them, to be fair. I sat through the COBRA with the Prime Minister, where we focused in on the wildfire threat. I think it's acknowledged, it's understood, and I think we're seeing kind of really deliberative action from this government. We've already received about £1 million worth of investment to build a wildfire capability that we can deploy nationally. But I think more recent events has demonstrated that we're still a little bit behind that curve. And the kind of comments from the Prime Minister and the Secretary of State in respect of investment and reinvestment back into the fire and rescue service is very much welcomed by fire and rescue services the length and breadth of the country.
If the PM was to sit down with you and say, Phil, I've got a blank cheque, I've got a chequebook open, and you can have whatever money, whatever resources you need, what would you say to him is your kind of ideal wish list?
Yeah, look, first and foremost, over the course of the last 48 hours, there were times when we struggled to be able to provide the resources that fire and rescue services required. So we were getting requests for fire engines and firefighters predominantly to support firefighting operations in a number of locations across those 11 areas. And so first and foremost, we would want to see kind of investment to ensure that the capability, we've got the right people in the right place at the right time to deal with the kind of foreseeable threat, because it is foreseeable. This is the new normal for the fire and rescue service. But we've also had kind of conversations about building on that national capability that's already seen some investment to A, sustain it, and B, enhance it, so we've got the ability to mobilise nationally to support locally. And we are also having kind of conversations and clear indication from government that we'll start to explore the potential for an aerial firefighting capability to be able to be utilised across the UK to kind of be directed by fire and rescue services to support firefighting operations. Now, that might not be applicable everywhere, but it certainly would take some of the pressures off fire and rescue services, and certainly would deal with fires in geographically difficult areas more effectively than we currently have available to us.
And that was quite publicised during the Dunwich Heath situation, that the National Trust ended up kind of tendering, renting a helicopter to provide aerial assistance. From that respect, what would you like to see? Is this helicopter provision? Is this aircraft? Is this a mixture of the two? And how much support is there from government to give you that resource?
Yeah, look, we've had very positive indications from government, and we need to kind of explore what is the most appropriate aerial firefighting capability for the UK. To recognise that the UK is not that similar in respect of the kind of the landscape to the likes of Greece, arguably even France and Spain. So we need to ensure that we are bringing in the right aerial capability to deal with fires. But we are exploring whether that would be, in the first instance, an ability to direct a helicopter provision with firefighting capability. Well, but that may well expand, and it may shift, and it may change based on some of the kind of work that we need to do to ensure that we've got the right kit and capability to reflect the risk in the UK.
How important has kind of inter-agency relationships been in recent weeks, and even beyond state agencies to people like farmers, for example, land managers and rural communities who have often turned up? You kind of talk about accessibility, who've turned up with tractors and bowsers and trailers and kind of supported you guys in your work. How important is those relationships, and where can they be furthered?
Well, absolutely. The people that have, farmers particularly, been out in kind of their own land, trying to protect it. But we're seeing, extensive work across, public, private sector who recognise the threat that communities are facing, and they've done their damnedest, and they've been on the front line with firefighters at times, cutting fire breaks, preventing fires from spreading, being very decisive on their actions. And that is something that we will seek to explore and exploit. As we move into our new normality. Those relationships are really, really important to us, and we've effectively managed these wildfires and this wildfire season together rather than independently, and it be left to the fire and rescue service. We've got great relationships being built across the whole of the UK with landowners, with farmers, with governmental departments. We recognise the threat now, and we know that we need to put our shoulder to that to kind of ensure that we are protecting the people and the communities. I'd also, seen some of the images that are being shown on the screen at this moment in time. We know what the challenge is when the fire spread from the rural environment to the urban environment. And that is something which is at the forefront of our minds. We recognise that we've got at least probably 40 families who are waking up today having lost their homes and their possessions, and that is something that we are seeking to avoid at all costs. Our thoughts are obviously with those families, but we will do our damnedest moving forward to prevent that happening and affecting other families.
You're talking about your thoughts being with those individuals. Just breaking in the last moment or so is a statement from the Prince of Wales, who says, "Our thoughts with everyone affected, particularly those who have lost their homes," and pertinent to people like yourself, Phil, with those working tirelessly to protect communities' homes and the countryside. That's from the Prince of Wales. Do you get a sense of kind of a national support for the work you're doing? I feel as though it's there. I feel as though whenever I have conversations, whenever we do paper reviews, whenever we have guests on, there's a real gratitude and adoration for the work that you're doing. And I hope that translates, because it is there. And I hope that does, it's being echoed by the Prince of Wales. I appreciate that doesn't aid you in your work, but I kind of hope that it does at the same time.
No, look, it absolutely does, and I think it's recognition from the Prince of Wales, it's recognition from the Prime Minister, but equally it's recognition from members of the public, who have seen our firefighters work tirelessly over the course of the last, as I say, 48 hours particularly. Some of them have put their bodies on the line. They've put themselves between the fire front and people's properties. 9 firefighters were hospitalised as a result of smoke inhalation. That's how committed they are to protecting their communities. but it's also recognised the control rooms and the call handlers and the dispatchers who have been dealing with thousands of calls over this period, who haven't put their headset down and have continued to mobilise resources. So it really is a kind of a team game from a fire and rescue service point of view. But that acknowledgement at every level is really important, but particularly at a public level, and we've seen that. We've seen that in Stourbridge and West Midlands, where the public have been so grateful for the firefighters and their attempts to prevent the fire spreading and effectively managing those scenes. So, as I say, it's a combination of firefighters, farmers, landowners. We are all in this together. Climate change is not going away. This is our new normality, and we need to work together to resolve these. And we need to have the capabilities and the capacities to do that effectively. And government recognise that.
Chair of the National Fire Chiefs Council, Phil Garrigan, really appreciate your time and all the very best as well. Thank you.
Thank you.